let's read the selfish giant story.
Yeah, I love that one.
Fabian played in the giant's garden.
A long time ago, a giant lived in an old stone castle near a pretty village. The giant's garden was very beautiful. It was a large garden with soft green grass. There were beautiful flowers in the grass, like colorful stars. There were peach trees all around the garden. In the spring, there were pretty little pink and white blossoms on the trees. In the autumn, there was delicious, juicy fruit on the trees for the giant to eat. Pretty birds sat on the branches of the trees and sang sweet songs. So the garden was always full of music. It was a wonderful place. The giant was very proud of his beautiful garden, but he was also very selfish. He didn't want to share it with anyone. The children in the village wanted to play in the garden, but the giant didn't let them. He shouted when he saw them draw near. The children were scared of the giant, so they stayed away. The giant didn't have any friends in the village, but he didn't care. He had his beautiful garden, and he didn't have to share it with anyone who lived far away in another country. The giant was away for a very long time. When the children saw that the giant was not at home, they were very happy. At last, they could go inside his garden. So every afternoon on their way home from school, the children played in the beautiful garden. They ran around on the soft green grass. They stopped to smell the beautiful flowers, and they sat under the fruit trees to eat the delicious, juicy fruit and listen to the birds singing their sweet songs. They couldn't believe they had that beautiful place all to themselves. We are so happy here. We hope the giant never comes home. The giant returns. The giant stayed with his friend, the Cornish ogre, for 7 years. They talked and talked about many different things, but after 7 years, they had nothing left to say to each other. The giant was bored. He decided that it was time to go home. When he arrived, he saw the children playing in the garden. He became very angry and started shouting.
How dare you come and play in my garden? Get out! Go away!
The children were very surprised when they saw the giant. He had been away for such a long time that they had forgotten all about him. Some of them had never seen him because they were too young. The children were all very scared when they heard the giant shouting. They quickly ran away, and the giant was all alone. He was still very upset.
This is my garden. Why can't people understand that? This is my soft green grass. Those are my colorful flowers. These are my fruit trees. And those birds are singing sweet songs for me. I don't want to share my garden. It is for me and only me.
So the giant built a high stone wall around his garden so that the children could not get in. Then he made a large wooden sign and painted big black letters on it. The sign said, "Trespassers will be prosecuted." The giant put the sign up outside the garden where everyone could see it. Then he went into his castle and slammed the door. He sat in a large, comfortable chair by the window, and he looked out at his beautiful garden. The garden was quiet and empty without the children, and the giant was happy. He smiled to himself.
This is how it should be. My garden is my garden, and nobody else can play in it.
He was a very selfish giant. Nowhere to play. The poor children were very sad when they saw the high stone wall around the giant's garden and read the words on the giant's sign. They realized that their happy days in the giant's beautiful garden were over. Now the children had nowhere to play after school. They wandered around the high stone wall every afternoon when their lessons were over and talked about the beautiful garden inside. They missed it a lot.
We were so very happy there. It was the perfect place to play.
But now we can't even see inside. What are we going to do?
The children decided to look for a new place to play, but they were very disappointed. They tried to play on the road, but the road was very dry and dusty and full of hard stones. The children missed the soft, green grass and the colorful flowers in the giant's garden. They tried to play in their houses, but playing inside was boring. The children missed feeling the warm sunshine on their faces and the soft breeze in their hair as they ran around. They tried to play in the fields around the village, but the farmers chased them away. They didn't want the children to ruin their crops. They tried to play in the school playground, but the school was very quiet when lessons were over for the day. The children missed the wonderful sound of the birds singing their sweet songs in the giant's garden. The children became very sad. Now that they couldn't play in the giant's garden, they didn't want to play at all. They went straight home after school each day. The village was very quiet without the sound of the children's laughter. It was not a happy place at all. Only the giant was happy. He sat in his garden every day and enjoyed the beauty all around him. He didn't care that the children had nowhere to play, and he didn't care that the people in the village were sad. All he cared about was himself. Spring forgets. Winter came and snow covered the village. The birds flew away to warmer countries. The trees lost all their leaves and the flowers stayed hidden in the cold, hard ground. There was frost on the branches of the trees and on the windows of all the houses. There was ice on the village pond and a cold wind blew every day. But soon spring arrived and it was time for winter to leave the village. Pretty little blossoms appeared on the trees and the birds began to return. The snow and ice melted and leaves started to grow on the trees again. The flowers poked their heads out of the ground and the sun began to shine, making the village warm and bright again. But in the giant's garden, it was still winter. The birds didn't want to sit on the branches of the trees to sing their songs because there was nobody to sing for. The trees forgot to blossom because there was nobody to eat their fruit. One little flower poked its head out of the grass, but when it saw the big black letters on the giant's sign, it felt sorry for the children and decided to stay in the grass after all. The snow and the forest were delighted. They had the giant's garden all to themselves.
Spring has forgotten this garden.
We can live here all year round.
So the snow covered up the soft green grass, and the forest painted all the trees silver. Then the snow and the frost invited the cold north wind to stay with them in the garden. The north wind came and roared around the garden all the day. He blew the giant's chimneys down, and he pulled down some of the fruit trees. He was very happy.
This is a wonderful place. We must ask the hail to come and visit us.
So the hail came to the garden. He raced round and round, growing faster every day. Then he played on the giant's roof until he broke most of the slates. He even broke one of the giant's windows. The giant's garden was no longer beautiful. It was a cold and terrible place, always winter. The giant sat at his window and looked out at his cold white garden. He was very
I
puzzled.
can't understand why spring is so late this year. Winter has been here for months and months. Where is the sunshine? Where are my colorful flowers and the pretty blossoms on my trees? Where are the little birds with their sweet songs? I miss my beautiful garden. I hope there will be a change in the weather soon.
There was no change in the giant's garden. Summer came to the rest of the village. The sun shone brightly and the crops in the fields grew tall. The birds flew from tree to tree and sang happily. But in the giant's garden, the snow still covered the grass, and the frost still made icy patterns on the window panes. Summer thought the giant didn't deserve any sunshine.
The giant is too selfish. I don't want to visit his garden. Why should I give him sunshine when he never lets the children play in his garden?
After a few months, autumn arrived in the village. There was ripe golden fruit on the trees in every garden, and the farmers began to harvest their crops. The leaves turned golden and fell from the trees, making a carpet on the grass. But in the giant's garden, the hail still raced around, and the north wind still roared through the trees. Autumn looked at the garden from a distance and was skeptical.
Why should I give the giant my delicious, juicy fruit? He never shares his fruit with other people, so he doesn't deserve to have any. I won't visit his garden this year.
So winter stayed in the giant's garden for the whole year. The snow, the frost, the hail, and the north wind were all very happy because they were selfish like the giant. They didn't want to share their new garden with spring, summer, or autumn. They were having fun, and they wanted to play in the giant's garden all year round. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard some lovely music. It sounded so sweet that he thought the king's musicians must be passing by. But the king's musicians were not outside. The music was coming from a little bird. The bird was sitting on the ledge just outside the giant's window. It was singing happily. The giant was amazed. It had been such a long time since he had heard a bird singing in his garden. He thought it was the most beautiful music in the world. When the hail heard the little bird's song, it stopped racing all over the roof of the giant's house. The north wind heard the music and stopped roaring around the giant's garden. The frost stopped drawing patterns on the giant's windows and the snow quickly melted away, leaving the soft green grass uncovered. The sun came out and warmed the garden. A delicious fresh smell came through the giant's open window. He sat up in bed and he smiled happily.
I think spring is here at last.
The giant got out of bed and went to the window. He looked out at his garden and saw a wonderful sight. The children had found a hole in the high stone wall, and they had crept into the garden. They had climbed the trees and they were sitting in the branches. The giant could see one child in every tree, but he was not angry to see the children there. He was glad because the long, cold winter was finally over. The trees were happy to see the children in the garden again. So they had covered themselves with pretty pink and white blossoms, and they were waving their branches happily in the gentle spring breeze. The birds were happy to see the children in the garden again, so they flew around the children's heads and sang beautiful songs. The flowers were poking out of the soft green grass and laughing with joy to see the children again. The giant was happy. His garden was beautiful once more. As the giant looked out at his garden, he saw that there was still one part of it where it wasn't spring. In the corner farthest from the house, it was still winter. Snow covered the ground, so there were no flowers. There was a tree in the corner, but there were no blossoms on its branches. Instead, there was still frost and snow on the tree. The hail was racing around the tree, and the north wind was roaring and blowing all around it. There was a little boy in the corner, too. The little boy was very small, and he couldn't reach up to the branches of the tree. He walked around the tree, looking up at the high branches and crying. He seemed so sad. The tree was sad, too. It wanted the little boy to climb up and sit in its branches. It bent and spoke softly.
Please climb up, little boy. Sit in my branches so that winter will leave me alone at last.
The tree bent its branches down as low as it could, but the little boy still could not reach them. He was too tiny. The giant felt very sad as he watched this scene.
Why spring had been so late that year. Now I know why spring didn't want to come to my garden. It is because I was selfish and I didn't let the children play here. I have been selfish and unkind. I will change. I will help that little boy. I will lift him into the branches of the tree so that spring can come to the last corner of my garden. Then I will knock down the wall, and my garden will be the children's garden forever and even.
The giant crept downstairs and opened his front door very quietly. He tiptoed out into the garden and across the soft green grass. But when the children saw him, they were very frightened. They all ran away and winter came back again. Only the little boy did not run away. His eyes were so full of tears that he didn't see the giant. The giant crept up behind the little boy and lifted him up. He placed him gently on a branch of the tree. Suddenly, the hail and wind stopped racing around the tree, and the snow and frost melted away. The tree was covered in pink and white blossoms, and the birds came and sang on its branches. The little boy smiled and hugged the giant, and the giant thought that he had never been this happy in all his life. When the other children peeped over the high stone wall and saw the little boy hugging the giant, they realized that the giant was not wicked anymore. They ran back into the garden, and spring came with them. The giant looked at the children with a smile on his face.
This is your garden now, little children.
Children laughed happily. They ran to the giant and hugged him. The giant took a huge axe and knocked down the high stone wall around his garden. Now all the children in the village were free to play in the giant's beautiful garden. They ran across the soft green grass and they climbed up into the branches of the trees. They stopped to smell the colorful flowers which shone in the grass like stars. They sat under the trees and listened to the birds filling the garden with their sweet music. The giant sat by and watched the children. The sight of their smiling faces and the sound of their laughter and chatter made him feel very happy. He wondered why he had been so mean to them.
Why didn't I realize how wonderful the children are? I'm so glad they are my friends now. I will never be selfish again.
Will you come and play with us, please?
Of course, I'd love to play.
Giant joined in the children's
Let's get roped
games.
together.
He learned how to
Wow, you're
skip
so
and he
good.
learned how to
Now,
play hide and
let's play
seek.
hide and seek.
He sang songs with the children and listened to their jokes and stories. He let the children sit on his shoulders so that they were as tall as the trees. He had the most wonderful time. When the people of the village passed by the giant's house on their way to the market later that day, they saw the giant playing with the children in the most beautiful garden they had ever seen. The people were amazed. They had never seen the giant so kind and generous before.
The giant is not selfish anymore. Look, he is sharing his garden, and the children are happy again.
Everyone stopped to watch the giant playing happily with his new friends. The sound of laughter filled the air, and the village became a happy place once more. The children played all day long. In the evening, when the sun began to set and the sky grew darker, the children came to the giant to say goodbye. But the giant noticed that the little boy was not there.
Where is your little friend?
We don't know. He has gone away.
Do you know where he lives?
No, we had never seen him before today.
The giant felt very sad. He loved all the children, but the little boy was his favorite. His eyes filled with tears.
Perhaps I will never see him again.
Every afternoon when school was over, the children came and played with the giant in his garden, but the little boy never came. The giant was always pleased to see the children, and he was always kind to them. He joined in their games and he made them laugh. But he missed the little boy, and he wished he could see him again. He often spoke to the other children about the little boy. He asked them lots of questions.
Do you know his name? Where did he come from? Do you see him at school?
The children did not have any answers for the giant. They didn't know anything about the little boy. But the giant never forgot his special friend. Years went by and the giant became very old. He was weak, so he could not play with the children anymore. He sat in a huge armchair and watched the children playing in the garden. Sometimes the children would sit on the giant's knee and ask him to tell them stories. The giant knew lots of stories and the children loved to listen to him for hours and hours. They forgot that he was once selfish and wicked, but the giant always remembered the time when there were no children in his garden. He still couldn't believe how thoughtlessly he had behaved.
How could I have been such a fool? I have many beautiful flowers in my garden, but the children are the most beautiful flowers of all.
One cold winter morning, the giant woke up early. He got out of bed and looked out of his bedroom window. The garden was covered with snow, but the giant didn't mind. He didn't hate wintertime anymore because he knew that it was just a time for the world to sleep. Now that the giant was good and kind, winter never stayed too long. Soon spring came and filled the garden with flowers again. Then summer warmed the garden and made the flowers grow tall. Next, autumn brought ripe, juicy fruit to all the trees.
The world needs winter just as it needs spring, summer, and autumn. All the seasons are beautiful in their own way.
As the giant looked out at the snowy garden and the frosty trees, he saw a strange sight. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. In the corner of the garden farthest from the house, there was a tree with white blossoms all over its golden branches. Silver fruit hung from the tree, ready to fall to the ground. And under the tree was the little boy who the giant loved most of all. The giant was very happy to see his little friend again. He cried out joyfully and ran down the stairs. He hurried out into the garden and across the snowy grass. He took the little boy in his arms and hugged him gently.
I missed you so much. I thought about you every single day. Where have you been?
I have been in my own garden. It is as beautiful as yours.
But where is your garden? I wanted to find you, but I didn't know where you lived.
I live in people's hearts. I was always with you.
But I don't understand. Who are you? What is your name?
You let me play in your garden once. Today, you shall come with me to my garden. It is called Paradise.
The giant took the little boy's hand, and he felt peaceful and happy. When the children came to play in the garden that afternoon, they found the giant lying dead under the tree, with a loving smile on his face and white blossoms covering his body.